Hi everyone, my name is Gurpreet, and on behalf of Wonder House Facebook page, I welcome you all for another live session. And today's session is going to be very interesting and a learning session for all of us, and especially for kids, as we are going to learn something about creative writing today. So, basically, how to improve our vocabulary, how to write in a better and effective way. So, for that, we have invited Miss Anupama Dalmia, who is a creative writing mentor for the venture called Beyond the Box, and she has been taking. Hi, Anupama. Welcome to the session.
Hi, Gurpreet. Thank you so much to you and Wonder House for inviting me.
Thank you so much. We are glad you have taken out your time for our audience today and share some tips on the creative writing skills. So we're looking forward to hear from you, and to the audience, stay tuned. And if you have any questions, please do write in the comment section. And Anupama is going to answer all your questions in the session itself. So looking forward, I'm just the audience who will be hearing you, Anupama. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to talk to all of you today about something that I'm passionate about, and that is creative writing. Now, you know what? I feel that when it comes to children, I find that a lot of parents express concern that, my child doesn't write or doesn't show that kind of interest in writing, or maybe, finds it boring, or sometimes I even hear things like, oh, he's just maybe lazy to write. What I have observed and understood in my career, as a creative writing mentor, with my experience with children, is that I think we don't really expose them to the joys of writing. So for me, I think the first and foremost thing when it comes to creative writing is for them to really understand that writing is not a mundane or academic process. I think that's what I hear from most kids, that, okay, I mean, before they actually join my classes, most of them would be like, it's studies, and it's not studies. Creative writing is so much more. So I personally feel that writing is amazing because you can actually create a world of your own. There are no restrictions, there are no rules. You can just create world, you can create characters. You also can put out information out there, important information for people to access years down the line. So I feel writing is very powerful in so many ways, and I think most of all, it is so much fun. So just imagine you can achieve a lot just by having fun. Have fun with the 26 letters, and you can do so much to create an impact in the world and to influence mindsets in a positive way, and also to, give people an escape. Why do we read books? A lot of times we do that because we need an escape from the everyday life, and the sanity of the world. Sometimes we really want to get into another, we need that outlet. We want to get into another world altogether. So that is exactly what you achieve when you write. You give that to somebody else. So I think it is very important that when we talk to anybody, especially kids, about creative writing, we don't make it a boring subject for them in the way we talk to them about it. So I think that is the first point I would like to make for all the adults. It could be parents, it could be teachers, it could be mentors, it could be anybody else who interact with the child. Make it fun for them. uh, Now, once children realize that, okay, creative writing is something interesting, but then how do we make it interesting for them? Tell me, how many of you have asked a child that, okay, today you write this, this is your topic for today. We do that often, right? This is your topic, write about it. Suppose we go to some place, we visit a place, we come back and tell the child, okay, now you write about it. I think there we are just limiting, their thoughts, because it's boring after a point. Like, if somebody keeps telling me every week that, okay, now you write on this topic, now you write on that topic, I think it will get boring for anybody. So, how do we then make this fun for children? I think it's important that we also get involved in the process. I'll give an example. So there was a child who was not a lot into writing, and the child had actually visited a place. So when the child came back, the parent was like, oh, I want you to, write like a travel blog on it. And the child wasn't really keen. So then I started talking to the child. I asked the child, okay, tell me, what was your favorite moment from your trip? How did it exactly make you feel? What when you saw something, what were your thoughts? So don't just when we generally tell them that, okay, write about it, what happens is that we limit it with respect to, okay, this happened, this happened, this happened. But you need to engage in a conversation for them to understand beyond just what happened, how they felt, how they visualized something, what did they take back. It is important to boost that kind of critical thinking in them. It is important to build on the imagination which already exists in them. So I think that's where the role of adults, I think it makes it is really important, because unless we do that with the children, like I said, they are not going to be receptive to the idea, especially kids who, there are some kids who, of course, love writing and they always like, I mean, they keep writing something. But then there are some who do not enjoy it as much, because probably they have not been exposed to it in the right manner. So the moment I started talking to the child, with respect to how the child felt, what was most exciting, what didn't he like, maybe, and then I realized that, okay, then there was some kind of clarity in his head, and he was able to express himself, and he actually took interest in writing that travel blog. So just simply asking kids to do something will not help. It's a very normal thing that we have to get involved with them. So so talk to them about things. It's very important to have conversations on a regular basis with children, which promotes their critical thinking, their creative thinking. Because unless we do that, we are not setting up that base. Because see, this is the age when they get into that mode, where they would question things, where they would think differently. So let's not curb their imagination. I think that is something which I have noticed a lot, while working with kids, that they don't get that uninhibited environment to express and think. So I think it is very important that for the creative writing to come out, in an effective manner, the base has to be there. So let's, there are so many other ways of getting them interested. Another thing you can do as a family, why always give the child a topic to write on? Maybe you start a story and ask the child to complete. Make it a family activity. Trust me, this will definitely work, and this will definitely get the child excited, because then they know that, okay, this is also bonding over stories, right? So say today I tell my child, okay, this is a story I'm thinking about, and this is how I want to start it. So what do you think? How will it, go forward? And that definitely will get the child excited and also thinking, and the child will get some fuel too. So that is one way you can go about it, by like coming up with such kind of activities. There are so many other ways you can give them interesting prompts. For example, what you can do is, maybe one day you can ask the child that, okay, cut out pictures from, say, old magazines or newspapers, put some 4 5 pictures together and see, does this make a story? Because everything will make a story. Trust me, today everything is about storytelling. Even now, sitting in this room, maybe if I be very observant and perceptive, I can find like 4 to 5 stories around me today. So so everything in life, everything is about a story. So for that to come out, there has to be different kind of fun prompts that kids can actually use to trigger those ideas in their head. So like I said, cut out pictures for prompts. Sometimes what you can do is, you can actually use maybe book covers, or there was an interesting activity which I did once with the children, which was a big hit with them. I gave them an actual book cover of a book and told them that you interpret this book cover. So of course the actual book definitely has a certain story, but if you see this book cover, what do you think? So you come up with your version. So these are many different ways that one can use to trigger those ideas which are waiting to come out, because I feel that the minds of kids are full of creative ideas. It's just about giving them that outlet, and it is just about giving them a certain kind of direction and giving a fuel to their imagination. So when we do such kind of things, we are setting that first foundation of creative writing, because suddenly the writing won't become very effective and impactful. The base has to be there, the way they think, the way thoughts trigger in their head, that is important. So and yes, like, please feel free to drop your questions during the session. I will take them up as and when you post them. because I know creative writing is such a vast area. There can be so many things one can learn when it comes to creative writing. And I'm, of course, going to be touching upon just the basics today. But if you have any question related to books or creative writing, please feel free to post. So I spoke to you about, the base, that okay, how to first develop that love for writing, how to make it exciting, how to get that idea coming. So like as I said, like there are ways to get the prompts, and of course be very perceptive to the world around you. I'll give you an example. So one day what happened is I was at a birthday party, and one of my students, she was observing me. So what I was doing is, the younger kids, they were playing with balloons, and the balloons kept, flying, and they were like hitting the ceiling and were not coming down, and I had to jump and bring it back for them. And this happened multiple times. So my student was observing this, and she actually turned this anecdote into a very delightful story. So I think it's very important to understand that stories need not really be something very great, something, I mean, it is there in the everyday life, it is there in the mundane, and it is on us how we pick that. So, so yeah, so the kids, you have to be very perceptive to your surroundings. Observe people. Suppose you're traveling, just look around. The people we see around are actually those who can give us ideas to create well fleshed out characters in our stories. So look around, be perceptive, and that will definitely trigger a lot of ideas in your head. And I see a comment from Horizon, Tadi, that stories are indeed an important part of our lives. I completely agree. I mean, like I said, it's just there everywhere. Apart from all this, I think one more thing, which is one more activity, which I really recommend that all of us need to do, especially if if you want to write well, it is that you have to read. I feel reading and writing go hand in hand. uh, you will come across some people who will, maybe say that, no, if I have to write, why do I really have to read? Well, it is something like, a writer recently told me something which I really found is very relevant. Her name is Aarti Raman. She's an author, and she said that, it's almost like going to a writing school, because when you read books, you understand so much about the writing process of authors. You understand how they do it, the structure, the way they, connect the dots. Reading will actually give you so many ideas, and it also enriches you with information. So the more you know, the more you can think of different ideas, right, for stories. So reading is very important. And of course, I always say that reading is something like, I mean, you won't go without a meal, right, in a day. So I think books are just like that. Books are for our mind and soul what food does to our body. And that's why the impact you will not know like immediately. Like when you have dinner, it's not like you suddenly become healthy and fit. It is something which adds up over the years. And similarly with books, the more you read, it just adds up. And then one fine day you will realize that how it has really enriched you in more ways than one. And when I say read, you don't have to read what people are saying you must read. For example, if they say, oh, you're now 10-year-old, you should read Harry Potter because it is the bestseller. No, you are free to decide what you want to read. Today, as an adult, I still enjoy reading comics like maybe Tinkle, and there's nothing wrong in that. Reading is reading. So just read anything you want to read. It doesn't have to be only books, it could be children's newspapers, it could be articles, it could be anything else. Just read, just get into that habit. And your choices will keep changing, of course. So today you may like a certain kind of books, and that's what I even tell the parents, that don't push kids to read a certain thing, that will take away from the joy of it. So you decide what you want to read. You know what you enjoy, right? You know what you relate to. You know what some people enjoy fantasy, some enjoy thriller, some enjoy realistic fiction stories, some like stories in an Indian context. Some they like to read the classics. So everybody's choice is different, and there is no right or wrong there. So please read a lot, read what you want to read. Even if you read for like 15 minutes every day, that is also more than enough. So all this, it once you do all this on a regular basis, you have a strong foundation set to become a good writer. Now, sometimes my students ask me that, Auntie, why should I become a good writer? I don't want to become an author when I grow up. It's not about becoming an author. Not obviously, not everybody is going to become an author when you grow up. Now tell me something. Why do you have to be healthy? Are you going to become like a fitness trainer when you grow up, or are you going to become like some kind of boxing, going to the boxing ring or something? No, right? We have to be healthy. It's just about being healthy. So writing is also very therapeutic. It is good for you because expression is, I think, the essence of every human. If you're not able to express your thoughts, it's going to be only difficult for you. So it's very important that you understand yourself, you understand your thoughts, you own your thoughts, and then you express them without the fear of what anybody says or anybody does. So don't think about whether somebody else is going to like what I write. It is not about that. It is about you. Today if I give one topic to 10 kids, I will get 10 different stories. Because why? Because every child is unique, every person is unique. And that's why the creativity is unique. Because creativity is, something, because there's always this question that comes up, that can creative writing really be taught? And I would say that it is both art and craft. So there is an art which is within you, and then there is a craft which is that some techniques which you can learn to make your writing more effective. That's it, for it to be understood in a better way, for it to create an impact for those you're writing for. So that's exactly. So what I was saying is that it is very important that you will focus on both of the things. Focus, of course, on your own, like I was saying, own your expressions, own your thoughts, but at the same time also keep honing your craft. the when you choose to express in a certain language, it is, I think it is only fair to expect that you respect the language you choose to write in. It may not necessarily be English, it could be Hindi, it could be your regional language, any language, it could be your mother tongue. You have to understand the semantics, you have to understand the grammar, syntax, just everything, because it is just about respecting that language. So, yes, so keep focusing on the craft as well when you do that. Now, how exactly do you write effectively? Now, what I've seen that normally kids, they are loaded with ideas in their head. They have so many thoughts and so many, they're bubbling with ideas always. And whenever you ask them to narrate a story, they would be so excited. Okay, then this happened and then this happened. But often we tend to focus on, okay, this happened and then that happened. So it becomes more about, okay, what is going on? But I think two things are very important when you're writing. Always remember, one is the imagination. How are you exactly visualizing that certain scene? How is it happening? And second is the feeling. How is a certain character feeling? So it is very important that you bring out these two aspects in your writing. So first you sit, you think carefully, and then translate it into words. So, for example, don't just focus on maybe a character, say Arjun won the competition, but focus on how exactly was the result announced, how exactly did Arjun react, how exactly did he feel. So you're getting me? So it is not just about what happened, but about what the characters are feeling. The character could be even an animal, or it could be an alien, whoever, whatever it is in your story. It is very important to show that, because if you read books, you know very well how we connect to characters, right? Like, for example, I'm a Harry Potter fan, and for me the characters are what actually make it special. So for people, for the readers to connect to your characters, it is very important to give them an insight into the character, how exactly the character behaves, how exactly the character thinks, how exactly the character feels. So think of this and then incorporate it in your writing. Now, coming to the imagination part, where I was saying that you need to create an imagery with your words. So, it should be something like your words are so descriptive that you've actually ended up making, like, a painting with your words. Now, how do you do that? Now, two simple ways of doing it is, one is, when you are writing a scene, think about the five senses of the human body in that scene, the dynamics of them. What are the five senses of the human body? The visual, the sound, the smell, the taste, and of course the feel. So when you write a scene, focus on what exactly is happening there with respect to these five senses of the human body. Now, suppose there is a scene where there's a mother who is making something in the kitchen. So when you write it, you would probably write something like, okay, then she was, cooking in the kitchen and the doorbell rang and she ran to open the door. This doesn't really create any sense in the reader, right? I mean, it's a very plain way of putting things across. The reader really can't imagine things exactly. The reader cannot really sense, there's nothing sensory the reader feels when you write like that. But the moment you add the detailing of the five senses of the human body, like maybe, for example, maybe what she was wearing, bring that into aspect. Maybe she was tempering the dal, seasoning, the dal with spices, the aroma of which was wafting through the house. And, so see how then slowly, when the moment you bring these aspects of, the five senses of the human body, the same thing that you're trying to convey to the reader becomes so much more effective, because then the reader knows, oh, okay, the character is maybe wearing a blue kurti, and okay, she's actually tempering the dal. We can actually imagine it all. And so I think this is something very easy to follow, I would say, not just for the children, but I think even as adults. Because I think even when we write as adults, we all have a strong points. Like, for example, if I talk about myself as a writer, I tend to focus more on the visual and feel. That's my strength, that I can bring out the feeling very strongly. I can talk about the visuals, what can be seen. But when it comes to using the other senses, I somehow tend to forget or don't incorporate. But I think if you need to have a wholesome impact on the reader, it is very important that you learn to use all these five senses in your writing. And I see a comment from Maneet where she says that the five senses tip is so useful and apt. Yes, indeed it is. And you will realize that it actually will elevate your writing to some other level altogether. And it is, as I said, it is very simple. When you're watching a movie, why do you enjoy it? Because you're watching things happening. You can, you feel like you're there, right? So the same thing you need to create with your words. You need to completely, get the reader into the world that you're creating. And similarly, if you're a writer already, you must have heard numerous times about the show don't tell technique. But for the kids and for the parents who are not aware of what that is, show, comma, don't tell is nothing but, don't tell the reader what somebody, say, a character is feeling, but show it. For example, don't tell the reader that, say, Anupama is angry. Show it. How is she expressing that anger? Maybe she's banging the door. Maybe she's just crying to, bring out that frustration for within. Maybe, she's just blasting things, or she's probably throwing things around. See, anger can be expressed in so many different ways, right? Every character will do it differently. So the moment you do this, again, you are making, because what happens is, when you say that Anupama is angry, the reader will think that maybe she's showing an anger in a certain way which the reader is imagining. But as a writer, probably that's not what you have imagined. So if you want the thoughts in your head to actually translate in your writing, so that the reader knows exactly what you were thinking when you were writing, it is very important to follow show don't tell. So show how. Now suppose tomorrow you say that somebody was very happy, because maybe she won some international level competition. How is the character actually, showing that happiness? Maybe she's jumping around, maybe she wants to party, maybe she just goes and hugs her mother. So bring this out in the form of, how things, like I said, it is not just about telling a story. You have to make the reader a part of it. So these are some simple techniques which you can actually use to make your writing detailed, to make your writing effective, and of course, to make the reader a part of the world that you're creating in your story. And then I also see a comment from Pavni. She's saying, create the same feel for the readers to enjoy our story like they watch a movie while reading. Absolutely, Shrikar. So Shrikar is a wonderful writer. He's a child, and I completely agree. And that's what I was saying. So yes. And I think so this was about how we make our writing detailed. Now there's another aspect of creative writing, when we say that the person has good creative writing skills. So we spoke about imagination, we spoke about ideas, we spoke about how reading is important, we spoke about the simple techniques that you can employ to make your writing more effective. Now comes vocabulary. Now, I think I get, this question a lot, that how important is having a strong vocabulary when it comes to creative writing? Should we be using really heavy words in our writing for somebody to take us very seriously as writers? If we use simple language, is that not good enough? My answer to this is simple, that, first of all, it is important that even if you're using, say, heavy words because you know them, it shouldn't come across as forced. Don't, like, suppose you have a sentence, don't fill it like with five sentences which nobody's understanding. You have to ultimately connect to the reader, right? But at the same time, it helps to just make your writing more beautiful when you use, like I said, when you use certain words. Now, for example, I'll just give a very simple example. If I say that I was so happy that my friend was coming home, okay, now when I say that I was on cloud nine when, because she was coming home. So when I say cloud nine, you know exactly how happy I am. Happiness also is, like, there can be little, okay, happy, there can be like really happy, and then there can be, that ecstasy level of happiness. So if you simply say happy, you're not conveying the exact emotion to the reader. So sometimes using idioms or phrases or stronger words actually add meaning to what you're trying to say. So my point here simply is that, use words which enhance the impact of writing in a way that it actually enhances. It shouldn't be like, it seems forced, or it seems out of place. It is very important for you to understand what word can be used in which context in a certain sentence. And it is I personally feel that good writing ultimately is what is effective. It is nothing to do with the kind of words you've used. And as I said, use powerful words, but in a way that it takes your writing to another level. Also, sometimes, these powerful words, they help you to make your writing more crisp. For example, one day I saw that a child had written that, he caught a disease which would spread upon touching. I said, just write contagious disease. That implies that it spreads upon touching. So sometimes it just makes your writing more, it makes it crisper, clearer. So you have to understand the reason of using powerful words. So as I said, don't use it just for the sake of it. Sometimes, like I said, it just sounds better. Suppose you're writing poetry. So in poetry, actually, these words, they sound better. They it's a literary piece. So it should be in context, it should be appropriate, the use of the word should be appropriate. And that is why I feel that building of vocabulary is extremely important too. And I'll just take this one question, and then I will go on to talking about how you can actually build your vocabulary and improve your word knowledge in a fun way. So Maneet is asking, often kids are not able to write consistently. They have to be motivated, pushed to write. Any tips so that they can keep themselves self-motivated? I think you've asked a fantastic question, Maneet. See, I think firstly, all of us need to understand that only writing is not creative writing. I have had situations during even my classes where sometimes kids are not in a mood. See, everybody always will not be in that mood to write. Even authors, you ask them, so they always won't be in that mood to write. So everything that contributes to your creative writing skill is also writing. I mean, in a way, it's contributing, right? So I feel that if your child is sometimes in that zone where they are kind of losing interest, let them be. Don't be too pushy. You can of course encourage, you can motivate, but do not be pushy. So there, I think we have to be careful about drawing a line. Maybe at that point the kid can get involved in other kind of activities. Say, for example, reading more, playing word building games, indulging in imagination boosting activities. So sometimes instead of making them write, just ask them to think, just something which promotes the creative thinking. Maybe you can tell them simple exercises, which even I do during my classes, is ask kids that if you want to say somebody you don't like them, what are the different creative ways in which you can do that? And I gave the example of something which I had read once in my news feed, that you are the Monday of my life. So that kind of conveys that I don't like you. So and I got some very interesting answers from them. So there, they are not writing, but at the same time they are thinking about ways in which they can alternately express certain things in their writing. So do these kind of activities firstly, if the child is going through that phase. Secondly, what you can do with respect to the actual writing part, I would suggest, is two things. One is, make them, like, you can give them to write something smaller. Like instead of writing like a long story, maybe say that okay, you just write some 8 to 10 lines on something fun. You have to try to play on the things that the child is currently interested in. I'll give you an example. Now, I was doing a class on argument writing, and I asked the kids to actually present their argument on why they think it is okay to wake up late, because normally they're always told, right, that you have to sleep early and wake up early. So I said, okay, now you present your argument in the form of writing that why it is okay to actually wake up late. And that got them very interested. They were immediately writing all the different points they could think of to convince an adult that why it's okay to wake up late. So I think it's very important to play on the things that we know will probably get them interested, or things which are maybe at that point child is into a certain thing. So just get them to write about that, because so I'll give an example. There was a child who was crazy about Pokemon, so I said, okay, chalo, you write something about Pokemon. So that is one thing you can do. And the other thing you can do is letter writing. I think we often underestimate letter writing. In fact, I've not seen many people considering letter writing as creative writing. Informal letter writing is creative writing. Anything which is personal, where we are putting out our thoughts, it is creative writing. I have seen that more often than not, letter writing is something which most of the times everybody is able to do, even if they are in a certain stage where they probably are not much into writing. So maybe you can ask the child to write a letter. It will definitely work. It has worked with a lot of people I know. So they can write a letter to themselves, they can write a letter to parents or friends or anybody. Just ask them, so that somehow it breaks that dam and gets the words flowing. So I think these are the small things which we can do. And as I said, the key here is not to be too pushy and be more like motivating. So I hope that answers your question, Maneet. And yes, so I was talking about vocabulary building. And I feel that vocabulary building is, of course, like I said, it's an integral part of creative writing. Usually, what we do is when we read a book, we underline a word, right? We tell kids that, okay, whatever meanings you did not understand, underline, go and see the meaning in the dictionary. Again, that becomes a very mundane process. Now, I have a theory here, which I usually share with everybody who I talk to about this topic. In our brain, there is a section of active vocabulary, and then there is a section of passive, vocabulary. And how things work is the active vocabulary is those words basically which we use, when we talk, when we write, which comes very easily to us when we are talking and writing. The passive one is the words we know, but they don't come immediately to us, so that knowledge, that part is passive. So we have to do two things here. One is we have to get more words into the the passive vocabulary, and at the same time we need to keep moving words from the passive to the active vocabulary. Now, when we do that, of course we are building our vocabulary, but then how do we do that? The best way to build vocabulary is play a lot of vocabulary building games. At like during my classes, I think every month I keep coming up with new word games for children, and trust me, it makes it so much fun for them. And that so sometimes people feel that, okay, today I played a game, say a vocabulary building game, I may not remember some of the words, and that is why it is important for this to become a continuous process. So my first recommendation is, if you don't have Scrabble at home, please buy Scrabble and play as a family. Trust me, nothing is going to build the vocabulary of the child better than that. Secondly, the child can, of course, you can play with your friends together. There are so many types of word games that you can also invent, and some are already existing, which people know of, like Hangman. And then you can do like a word antakshari, where say I start with a word, you continue with the last letter, and it goes on. And not just this, like I said, there are so many other words that are possible. If you actually go and Google, you will get many ideas. And I'm sure with your own creativity also, you can come up with so many word building games. So play a lot of games. What these games do basically over a period of time is they keep moving words from the passive to the active vocabulary. And then it becomes much easier for you to retain these words. Because see, what happens is, when you read a book, you underline a word, you saw the meaning, you forget about it, right? but that's not, then there's no point in doing that. So the when you play such games, there's more retention because you're enjoying, and the way the words actually get into your mind, there is a better like I said, there's better retention. For example, there was a word, so I was playing a game with the children where I said that the word rhymes with sambar and it means serious and sad. The word was somber, and to date all of my students remember that word because I just made it funny, like saying that it rhymes with sambar and all. Even my 5-year-old now knows that word. So see, this is what we have to find ways that uh, kids actually enjoy the process of learning, because I feel that learning is so much more effective when they're having fun along the way. So that is one way of improving vocabulary. Second, of course, is again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning: reading. The more you read, the more you get exposed to words, and the more and the more words the more again you write better. So that is there. Now one more thing which you can do for vocabulary building is uh, try, this is something which I've seen, that a lot of times when we talk, we use the usual language of talking, but I would suggest kids that suppose you've learned a word, try to also use it when you're talking, because you will realize that when you start using that word in your conversation, in the verbal conversations, actually you remember it better to use it when you're writing. So it could be even a simple word, like, say for the younger kids, maybe if you've learned that, okay, there is something called gloomy. So maybe you can actually use the word gloomy if someday you're in such a mood. So if you try to bring it in your verbal, it definitely, there's a higher chance that it translates into your writing space. So I think these are the ways, according to me, which really work in vocabulary building. And as I said, it has to be a continuous process. So that was on vocabulary building. So we spoke about a lot of things related to creative writing. One more thing which I would like to talk about here is the use of literary devices. Now, what happens is, that's my daughter, by the way. So, in school, when kids learn literary devices, how they learn is, okay, so simile means this. They learn by definitions, right? Like, okay, this is this. And I've seen that sometimes kids tend to forget, or maybe they get confused, sometimes when you actually have definitions or jargons. So this learning, I feel in my experience, when you make it more practical, they do it so much better. They let them not know what is the technical word of a certain literary device. It's okay, they will learn later, if not then. For example, personification. If they don't technically know that something is a personification, that's fine. But if they're using it in their writing, great. So I think we focus too much on the jargons, or whether this. It's okay. I think the practical learning is more important, the application. So when I approach this with the kids, what I do is I feel that, okay, if sometimes I do tell them, of course, that, okay, this is a certain literary device, but if they cannot remember, that's absolutely fine. The way it needs to be imagined and used is what is important. So let me give another example. So one day I just asked a child that, okay, a leaf is falling from a tree branch. How do you imagine, like, how's the leaf looking? So encourage them to think like that. They will automatically apply the literary devices without even knowing the technical names sometimes. So the child said the leaf is, it's dancing with the wind. So I said, yes, that's a personification, because leaf cannot exactly dance, but you're applying the characteristics of a person to the leaf. And I think that is what we are ultimately aiming to achieve. So the thought and the imagination is what we need to focus on when it comes to the kids, because the technical words, the jargons and all, they will learn, if not today, maybe a few months down the line, right? So the more thinking in them, uh, I mean, like, even say when it comes to simile metaphors, they don't need to say that, okay, I used a metaphor. Let them just think like that. Then, okay, she was running, just ask them, okay, how was she running, like what? And they will have so many ideas in terms of comparing. So that's there. So the use of literary devices also, of course, it is very important to enhance the impact of writing. But then, as I said, the way we approach our like the way we approach making them learn about it, I think we need to kind of change that a little. It should be focused more on the application and thought rather than knowing the jargons, as I said. So, I think I have pretty much covered everything I wanted to cover today with respect to the basics of creative writing. And as I said, creative writing is vast. There is so much, like, if I actually have to go into individual, topics, like, for example, character building itself can be done over, like, 3, 4 classes. There's so much, there's a lot of depth in each of the things. But I think first, as a starting point, all of these points which I spoke about, I hope that helps you to get your child interested in writing. And I hope even for the kids, you will realize that writing is actually fun, and there is so much of joy in just unboxing the magic that is there in that 26 in the 26 letters of the alphabet. So that's it. And yes, I also see some more comments from Aneet and Ramya. Thank you so much for joining the session.
Thank you so much, Anupama. Thank you for sharing so much of knowledge, especially the tips that you have shared with us on vocabulary building, effective writing. And I'm sure it's going to help our readers, especially our young learners. And these are really effective tips for creative writing. So I'm going to use that for sure in my day-to-day life. And I'm sure our readers are definitely have learned something new on creative writing. Thank you so much for the time, and we're looking forward to
Thank
have
you.
more sessions with you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you, everyone who joined. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.